What's up, guys? My name is John Hawes, RNCCRN with NRSNG.com, where our goal is to give you the tools and the confidence that you need to succeed in nursing school, on the NCLEX, and in your life as a nurse. To help you succeed on this journey, we've created weekly cheat sheets that we send to you every single Friday. To sign up, head over to NRSNG.com/freebies. That's NRSNG.com/freebies. And every single Friday, we'll send you a cheat sheet on pediatrics, OB, med-surg, mental health, ICU, critical care, every single aspect of nursing care to help you succeed. That's NRSNG.com/freebies. All right, now let's roll into the show.
What is up, everybody? This is Katie Kleber, BSN, RN, CCRN here, and I'm going to be talking about how to survive nursing school, 14 must-haves for nursing clinicals. And I did my nursing clinicals at Iowa Wesleyan University from 2007 to 2010. I was in larger hospitals, very small, rural hospitals, so it was a little while ago, but I remember a lot. I remember that feeling, and I've also had nursing students myself, both in a step-down setting and in a critical care setting, and not horribly long ago. So I know I can kind of, I understand both what the nurse is with the clinical instructor versus the nursing student. I've never been an actual clinical instructor myself, but I have had students with me. So clinicals are pretty nerve-wracking. I have seen many students pass out before. They get kind of nervous naturally. You know, I've been reading about patients for a while, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, a patient is in front of me and it's my responsibility to care for him. Pretty nerve-wracking. And then you add on top of that, you know, people are so nervous that they don't eat. And then they see blood and boom, they hit the floor. So the goal is to be prepared enough to where you're not losing consciousness, right? So how do you prepare? You can't just prepare practically. You must also prepare mentally. And the more familiar you are, the more you know about a situation, the more at ease you are. You know, we're nervous about the unknown. We're fearful of the unknown, and we don't know what it's going to be like. And after typically those first few clinicals, you really kind of calm down and ease into it. But it's really important to be prepared. So mental preparedness for nursing clinicals really starts before you even arrive. You know, make sure you know where you're going. You know, if it's nearby or it's someplace, you could maybe do a test drive too to make sure you can drive there. You know where you're going on the unit. You know, I'm a particularly nervous person in general. Anxiety is something I struggle with sometimes. So it's really like if I was starting clinical, and actually this is what I did when I started clinical, Henry County Health Center, for those of you that are in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, that was the local nursing place and or the local hospital where we were going to do clinicals for my first med-surg course. So I drove there the night before. I made sure I knew where I was going so that I wasn't trying to navigate this place for the first time at 6:30 in the morning. So I recommend that if you're kind of a nervous person. Always eat something, even if you're not hungry. You never know what's going to happen. Arrive early. Don't arrive on time. If you arrive on time, you're late. And have your resources handy. Now, let me go into depth about resources, having them handy. So, you know, textbooks will have like a clinical guide. And it's this thicker book that fits in your scrub pocket, but it's really heavy. And I had 4 or 5 of them, and I rarely used them because they were just so heavy. And having them is one thing, but being able to navigate them is another thing. So, you know, do you know where everything is in those clinical clinical guides? You know, here's the typical scenario. You're in the room with the patient. The nursing instructor, the clinical instructor, or the nurse on the unit. And I probably should have mentioned this before. When you do nursing clinicals, you know, sometimes you're with your clinical instructor. Your clinical instructor typically is not employed on that unit. They are typically employed by the school to, go through clinicals with you. So it's not like your clinical instructor is a nurse on that unit with a patient load. They're coming in on a different day, and their responsibility is all of the nursing students. So the clinical instructor may or may not work on that unit, and they may, for your clinical, pair you with another nurse who is working that day. Okay? So you could be with your clinical instructor, or you could be with a nurse on that unit that is not a clinical instructor, but you're kind of paired with them for the shift. Okay, back to what I was talking about. So having your resources handy is one thing, but knowing them is another. So you're in the room with the clinical instructor or the nurse, and they ask you a question, and you don't know the answer. And that's okay, because there's a lot of information that you're responsible for knowing, and knowing everything off the top of your head, not really realistic. But what is realistic is for you to be able to look up the answers. But it is important for you to be able to do so in a timely manner. Nothing frustrates clinical instructors or myself more. I ask a nursing student a question, and they don't know, and they tell me they don't know, which I appreciate. If you don't know something and you say, I don't know, and I say, okay, go ahead and look it up, and it takes them 45 minutes to look it up. Like, slowly go walk to their textbook and look around, and I'm not sure if this is it, let me look in another one, and it's like, if you could have just looked that up real quick, I could have gone over that and move on to the next thing. And it's like really important to be able to look through know your resources. And another thing that's important to know about working through clinicals is not every instructor is going to let you use your phone. I think smartphones are great, but I don't think they look professional in front of a patient. I think a lot of hospitals may be going to kind of like iPads and those kinds of things, which are great. But if you're on your phone in front of a patient, I don't think that looks professional. Even if you're texting your clinical instructor or another person, or you're using an app for clinical, me as a nurse, I'm not using my phone in front of my patient. If I'm using it up at the desk, I believe that's a different thing. Physicians and everybody will use those to look up stuff. I think that's helpful. But if you're doing that in front of a patient in their room, that is not professional. And so therefore, you need to be able to look up stuff somehow. And sometimes the computer has various resources. For example, I love MicroMedX. It is in our computer system, and I use that all the time. It is an ample source of knowledge, and I can navigate it pretty quickly. But so myself and the others in the team of NRSNG felt that struggle of being in the room with a patient. The nursing instructor asks you a question, and you need to be able to look it up, but you can't carry 10 textbooks with you. So what we did was we created something called scrub sheets, and there are 48 different laminated full color back and front cards that fit in a scrub pocket. They're laminated so you can clean them off, and they're separate, and they come with a ring so that you can like kind of keep them together. But we have different categories. So, you have like cardiac and respiratory, pediatrics, common ICU drips, what they do, neuro stuff. So if you're going to, let's say, your pediatric clinical, you can grab those pediatric ones and maybe a couple other lab ones. But those, are applicable, and they can fit in your scrub pocket. And like, let's say you're with your an L&D nurse, and they ask you, hey, how many arteries and veins are in the umbilical cord? And you're like, man, I don't remember, but I know where to look it up. And you pull out this thing out of your pocket, and it's the scrub sheets thing, and you can see, oh, here, okay, there are 2 arteries and 1 vein. And then you can verify that and do it very quickly. And honestly, if I'm a nursing instructor, I'm impressed if someone can do that. And I know my resources, I know it's on here, yada, yada, yada. So it's really important that you're able to do that. So that is part of being practically and mentally prepared. But I wanted to go over 14 different things that are important to have for clinical. Now, there are very few things that you will die if you don't have them. There's only a couple. So what I did in the spirit of the pain scale, 0, no pain, 10 worst pain in the world, I created the, instead of the scale of pain, I created the scale of necessity. So I'm going to say from a one scale of 0 to 10, how much you need each of these 14 items. So 0 is you don't need this thing at all, but it's kind of cool. 1 is you really want it, and it'll probably make things easier. 2 is you really want it, it'll definitely make things easier. Definitely make things marginally easier. So it'll make, 1 is maybe it'll make it easier. 2 is it'll probably make it easier. 3, that'll make it noticeably easier. 4, I really want it, and it would make things significantly easier. Remember, making things easier is not necessarily meaning, hey, you must have this. And 5, you actually should buy this, but you won't fail without it. 6, you kind of need this. So realize we're going from wanting something to needing something. You need this. 8, you really need this. 9, you really, really need this. And 10, you must have this for your student nurse heart to continue beating, and you'll probably fail 1,000 times over without it. All right, now that you understand my clinical scale of necessity, let's continue. First thing, stethoscope. My rating on the scale of necessity is a 10. You have to have a stethoscope. All right, if you forget it one clinical, that might be okay to borrow somebody else's, but you must have must have a stethoscope. So let me talk I'm going to talk a little bit about each item. So, there are quite a few options out there. Littman is kind of that classic brand, but the prices range considerably. You can get as cheap as $20 or as expensive as $400. Another maker is MDF. They make pretty high quality scopes as well, and they have one. I think one of their cheaper ones are $50, but those are legit scopes for a really good price. So they're a little heavier than like Littman, but which is kind of rough when you're holding them when they're on your shoulders, but they're good. So it's important to understand though. You don't want to get the cheapest. That was my mistake in nursing school. I bought the $20 Littman, and I couldn't hear much. It was not great, and I ended up getting rid of that bad boy. But it's like $400. I don't need to spend $400. So, also too, you're getting a scope in clinical because in clinical you're doing a little bit of everything. You're in the emergency department. You're in the pediatrics department. Maybe you're even in the neonatal ICU, and the stethoscope that you need for the neonatal ICU versus the adult ICU is different. And if you're someone maybe that you're working on a pulmonology floor and you maybe need to hear, really, really well, or maybe, if you're a respiratory, I know a lot of respiratory therapists that have those really high tech, like electric one, or like, I don't know what they're really high tech, expensive, but they're necessary for their position. Makes things a lot easier. So I encourage you to get a moderately priced one. I think $50 is a decent price point for nursing school because you don't know when you graduate where you're going to work. Unless you're one of those people that does, but there's very few of those. And then when you get your job, wherever you're going to work, then purchase, then invest more money into it. And so in school, if I could do it all over again, I would have gotten an MDF $50 one for nursing school. And then when I got into my job and knew where I was working, I would probably spend $100, $150. And actually the one I have, I think is $200. And then I also recommend getting it engraved with your name on it. No matter what price point you buy at, get it engraved because, you won't wear it around your neck all day. It does hurt your neck, hurts your shoulders. You think it's light enough, even the heavier ones, you think it's light enough where it doesn't matter, but it might not matter for a couple hours, but man, after 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours, it's heavy. So you want to make sure, it's inevitable for you that you'll set it down somewhere. And if something urgent happens or whatever, you'll forget it. And if you have your name on it, someone else can't steal it. I have had that happen before. They might intentionally or unintentionally do it. You know, there's a lot of Littman scopes running around. There's a lot of MDF scopes running around. So, you know, yours could look like someone else's and they could accidentally snag it thinking it's theirs. Or someone could think, oh, here's just a stethoscope that it's nobody's, so I'm going to take it. So if you have your name on it, increases the likelihood of it getting returned to you. I have floated multiple times and left my scope on another unit, and then I realized it the next day when I'm off for 3 days. And then I come back and they have returned it to my unit, or they've tubed it up to my unit and it's back in my mailbox. I've done that about 5 times. So engraving it with your name is worth every cent. Item number 2, Penlight. Scale of necessity in nurse is a 10 out of 10. You have to assess pupils in clinicals. And for me as a neuro ICU nurse, Penlights are really important because that is a really important aspect of a neuro assessment. You can get them from scrub stores, you know, and in nursing school, you probably don't need a fancy one. I have one that is on a keychain that's clipped to my badge, so I never lose it, which is wonderful. But I have one I really like from AutoZone, actually. It's the one that people use on cars. It's not too bright, but it's not too dim, and it looks just like a pen. It's silver. It costs about $7 or $8. And what I also did was I put a little nail polish on the side of it, so I knew it was mine, because multiple neuro nurses that I work with use that same exact one. And those neurosurgeons and those neurologists, they never have a Penlight with them. They always borrow the nurses. Similar to a stethoscope, physicians always borrow the nurses. But I want to make sure you get it back. So I have a little thing on it so I know which one is mine. All right, next one. Item number 3. And I forgot to say, I'm sorry, with our Penlight, scale of necessity, number 10. You must stethoscope and Penlight. I believe those are my only 10s. Oh, wait, actually I have one more 10, and I'll get to that in just a second. Number 3, small notebooks that fit in your scrub pocket easily. Scale of necessity, 4. So you want it and it'll make things easier. So, you know, you're in the room with a patient, or you want to remember something, or you want to look something up later, or maybe the nurse said something about a care plan that you want to make sure you remember. And while, yes, you can scribble this on a piece of paper and that works totally fine, but what are the chances of you keeping track of all of those little pieces of paper week after week? Probably pretty low. Or what are the chances of you forgetting it and washing it, or crumpling up and throwing it away and forgetting later, like, oh, I had important stuff written on it. I like Paper Source as a cool store. They have those little notebooks, you know, that are really small, fit in the scrubs, and then you could have one for each class. And, you know, I really liked to write down good talking points. So if I felt like a nurse explained something really well, or said something really great, you know, I wanted to make sure I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, so I could remember to say that myself. All right, next one. This is my other number 10. Item number 4, good underwear. And this is absolutely a number 10. And yes, you heard me right. I said underwear. I absolutely did. Along with people passing out, this one is another one. You know, scrubs are a little different than other kinds of pants. They're pretty thin. And a lot of schools require white scrubs. Well, you can see right through white scrubs. And if you're wearing bright orange underwear, you can clearly see orange underwear, plain as day. Or if maybe you're wearing a specific kind of underwear and you bend over, everybody can see it. Nah, you guys, this is really unprofessional. And while people may not point it out, a lot of people will notice, if not everyone will notice. And I've actually seen a confused elderly patient and a not confused elderly patient loudly point out the color of underwear that the nursing student in their room is wearing, because they bent over right in front of them, and there you can see, you know, whatever written on their butt. So, make sure you get underwear. If you're wearing white scrubs, make sure you get underwear that matches the color of your skin. Don't get white. You could get white. That's not terrible, but, you know, at least that's the same color as the scrubs. But get something that is the same color as your skin. That way you don't see it. It's really important. It looks very professional to do that. And keep in mind, too, when you're in nursing school doing clinicals, you're going to be bending over all day. Bending over, pulling patients up, doing a bed bath, plugging something into the wall. Patient drops something, you're going to pick it up typically. You know, you're bending over a lot. So it's really important to make sure that you're appropriately covered. And it's super embarrassing and can really throw your game off when that elderly lady says, "Hey, you in the pink underwear." And you guys have seen it more than once, so make sure you're wearing the right underwear. All right, number 5, backup uniform. Scale of necessity rating is a number 8. I recommend this because you never know what's going to happen. I know you try to be real careful in clinical, but, you know, I've seen, you know, somebody walking with the JP drainage, you know, they empty the JP and they're about to go dump it in the toilet, and somebody, like, who is not looking runs into them in JP juice all the way down their scrubs. Or you're walking a patient to the bathroom, they sneeze, and then they start peeing on you. Had that happen. I had a male patient, "Oh, come help me, I gotta go to the bathroom." And he had his, the urinal nearby, and kind of like in the bed, but not really. And he knocked it and it knocked pee all over me. What else? Or you're taking care of a patient with a trach and you're walking in front of them and they suddenly cough and spray sputum all over you. Like, you want to make sure you have something to change into. So when I was in nursing school and I didn't have a locker, I kept it in my car. So that worst case scenario, I could send one of my clinical buds out to my car and grab it so I could put something else on. And now that I'm a nurse and I have a locker at work, I have a backup set of scrubs in the locker, and I have a backup set of shoes actually as well. And I've utilized those many times. So important to have a backup, because while you might be great at getting out stains, you have to have something to change into while you're still at clinical, because just because someone gets snot on you or pees on you doesn't mean you get to go home. All right, number 6, snacks. A scale of necessity rating an 8. Like I said, nursing students pass out. A lot of times because I didn't eat because they were so nervous. I've also, especially in nursing school, they would let one student rotate in and out of the OR to observe, which is wonderful. Super cool experience. I watched a tonsils and adenoids operation on a kid. I watched an aneurysm clipping in someone's brain, which was super cool. But if you're standing in the OR, it's just you're basically just standing there. And if you pass out in the OR, that's kind of a big deal, because you're in this sterile environment, and now they're all focused, the surgeon, the surg tech, the circulating nurse, they're all focused on this patient, and now they got an unconscious student on the floor. So it is really important to make sure not only that you have eaten breakfast or eaten a meal before you come in, but you have kind of these quick snacks to grab, because sometimes you won't have time to sit down and eat, but you want to have, like, sit down and heat up your lunch and enjoy it. Like, you don't have time for that, guys. You got to have some quick snacks that you can easily eat, preferably something that's pre-packaged, you know, or packaged in like a little, like a Ziploc or something. So maybe a granola bar, nuts, crackers, fruit or something. Really recommend that. If you're feeling a little hypoglycemic, you can address it quickly. Item number 6, good pens. Scale of necessity rating 1. I said good pens is a 1 because you can get by with any pen, but it makes life a little nicer when you really enjoy the smooth flow of a good pen. I gotta tell you, I don't know why I love it so much. All right, next one. Number 7, good shoes. Scale of necessity rating 7. So you can function on any old shoe. You can. But let me tell you what I've learned from wasting some decent money. So I really like wearing tennis shoes, but after about 6, 7, 8 hours, man, my legs hurt. I mean, I'm a college athlete, or I was a college athlete, really involved in working out hardcore, and I've had tendinitis, I've had knee injuries and foot injuries and ankle injuries, But man, after you're standing up, running around a nursing unit for 12 hours, after about hour 7 in some plain old tennis shoes, your shins start to kill. I mean, it hurts. You go home in pain. So you really have to have shoes that provide good support. And when I would buy a pair of tennis shoes, and they would only last me 6 months before I couldn't stand it anymore. And I was buying a brand new set of shoes every 6 months. And that's if I didn't get somebody puking on them. Like, you cannot clean those tennis shoes very well if you get gunk on them. Like, it just doesn't come out. So I tried Crocs. Those hurt. They looked terrible. And then they hurt too. So got rid of those. Next thing I tried was Danskos. They hurt at the beginning, but then I loved them. I wore them for a couple years, but the thing I hated about them was I would trip in them because the heel was kind of high. But man, those things were awesome. My legs never hurt because they were, I don't know if they're wooden or what they are, but the support was really good in them. So my knees and shins never hurt, and I could clean them off really easy. And I mean, I know they look ridiculous, but man, they're really expensive. They were $130, $140, but at the rate I was buying other new shoes, they ended up paying for themselves pretty quickly. But I didn't like how tall they were, and I would roll my ankle all the time. So actually, Danskos created another line called Work Wonders, and those are my favorite. They're a shorter heel. They fit a little snugger. I've worn them a ton, and they support just the same, but I haven't rolled my ankle as much. Or I actually haven't rolled it at all. I've had them for about a year. I really like them, and they're cheaper, $100. And if you ask me, worth every single cent. I have them in just the plain black matte. I think they look really good, and I really like them. All right, item number 8, a clipboard. Scale of necessity, so rating a 6. Now, I don't use one as a bedside nurse now, but in nursing school I used one, and I used one with storage. So you have a lot of papers you have to keep track of, your clinical paperwork, your care plan, like just a lot of stuff, your report sheet. And so I used a clipboard that had storage with it, so I always had some place to write to, because, you're in a clinical group of 15 or maybe 8 to 15 other people, and there's not enough room for everyone to be able to sit down and chart and sit down and write. Like, there's already the staff of the nurse that's there, the nursing staff for the day that's already there, the entire healthcare team, the physicians, the therapists, everybody. So you subsequently can't sit down and write. You're not the priority. It makes sense. There's enough room for everybody. So I found myself writing standing up all the time. So if I had a clipboard, I didn't have to freak out about finding some place to sit down and write for 20 minutes because I had this clipboard with me. So I really recommend having a clipboard in nursing school. We have one from NRSNG that we created that serves as not only a clipboard to write on, but it also has reference material on it, some helpful things to know. So it kind of serves two purposes, so you can get to know that resource as well, and it's yet another thing that you don't have to carry around in your pocket. About $25, available on Amazon Prime, or Amazon, and you can get it with Amazon Prime. Number 9, brain sheets. Scale of necessity rating a 6. So what's a brain sheet? It is a report sheet, and nurses, we call it a brain sheet because nurses refer to it as their brains. So you get report as a bedside nurse on multiple patients, and you write down all your information to know about that patient on that sheet of paper. And then when you get discharged, when you discharge and admit people, it's really helpful to have that stuff written down, because it's not always practical to get to the computer and reference that material, especially if it's an urgent situation. I remember being a night shift nurse, having 6-7 patients, someone's coding all of a sudden or just doing not as bad, not great. Physicians asking me 20 questions, and I don't have time to hop in the chart. I pull out my brain and I'm like, oh yeah, this was the dose of whatever they got yesterday, and this was their lab this morning. Like, with such turnover, it's not realistic for me to remember all that information, so it's really helpful to have it written down, and it helps my memory when I write it down in report. But it's important, though, to know that report sheets in different units will look different. So the report sheet for the emergency department, which typically isn't a report sheet, the emergency department nurses joke that their report sheet is a blank sheet of paper, because they just have such a high turnover writing stuff down, not happening. But like the ICU report sheet for an adult ICU, very detailed. But the adult ICU report sheet going to look different than the baby, the neonatal intensive care unit going to look different than the pediatric intensive care unit. And my neuro ICU report sheet looks different than the regular ICU report sheet, and also looks different from the cardiac report sheet. So, we at NRSNG created a kind of general report sheet, and we made a database where you can look at different ones, download. I think there's 33 of them. You can download them and then use one that you like, because it's really helpful to have a pre-printed one. So you can download and then copy as many times as you want. Or we also have one that's pre-printed where it's just tear off sheets. So a couple different options. And what's nice is when you add that with your clipboard, then you can have your pre-printed or copied report sheets in there, so that if you have to change patients all of a sudden or get report on a different patient, you're not searching around trying to find a report sheet. You got it in your clipboard, which is wonderful. Item number 10 is our scrub sheets. So you add all those together and you really, really helps. Scrub sheets, I've already described them. They cost about $40. Get them on Amazon Prime, throw them in your scrub pocket, you're good to go. My scale of necessity rating, 9. You should have this thing. It's going to make life easier, and I really wish I had one. We created the resource we wished we had in nursing school. Item number 11, fill in drug cards, like a drug card template, basically. Scale of necessity rating, a 7. I put this as a 7 because you'll have to do drug cards. You just have to. But if you have them all formatted exactly the same, it enhances memory significantly. You also can color code it, and that really helps with memory. And you're also not and you can type the information, which is a lot faster than handwriting it. And it's also formatted, so you don't have to screw around with formatting on Microsoft Word. Seriously cuts down on wasted time. Plug information in, print it off, maybe tape it to a card, or just have the little cut it out and have that. Super, way faster than getting out all the index cards, writing them out, and then and they all look a little different because they're not formatted, and it takes time to write them out. So that is number 11. Number 12, we're getting to the end of the list here, guys. Number 12, fill in care plan template. So same thing kind of as the drug card thing, but a care plan template. I remember screwing around at like 11 o'clock at night. I had my care plan handwritten, but then I had to type it out because I had to have it typed to turn in. And I was screwing around with Microsoft Word formatting, and I couldn't figure out how to make it look nice, and it was such a headache. And I didn't want to learn how to format Microsoft Word at 11 o'clock when it was due the next morning. So we have a fill-in one, so you don't have to screw around with that. Put it at a level 7. Download it. Put in your information, print it off. You're done. You're not screwing around, and that was such a headache. All right. Item number 13, apps. Remember, can't use your phone unless they tell you it's okay. But a couple apps I have that are wonderful in nursing school because you have all this information at your fingertips. Medscape, Figure One, Micromedics, Nursing Central, Nurse Grid, RN Crush, Hippocrates, Fast Facts for Critical Care. That one's $30. It's expensive. I would only get that one if you need stuff for critical care specifically, but it's wonderful. So that one's $30. Smart FOAM, and then Stethoscope Expert. It's that last one's a free app that you can hear heart, lung, bowel sounds. Great for practice. So check those out. Scale of necessity level 7. Last one, compression socks. Again, scale of necessity rating a 7. Compression socks are wonderful. I wear them every shift, but it is rough standing around walking for 12 hours straight. They really support your legs, and my legs feel a lot better after I've been wearing them a shift. They're not just for women, also for guys too. Tons of companies out there are creating them for nurses, so just check some compression socks out. I really recommend them if you're going to be doing some long clinicals and you really want them just as a bedside nurse as well. So that is a level 7. So basically, clinicals are tough. You want to be as mentally, emotionally, and practically prepared as possible. You want to have good resources at the tips of your fingers, but it's also really important to know those resources well so you can get to that information quickly. So I just encourage you, trust us. We've been through nursing school, and we've tried to create some of the stuff that we wish we had in school that would make it easier. So I hope this podcast helps you ease some nursing clinical anxiety by helping you be a little bit more prepared, and enjoy clinicals. Look at clinicals as an opportunity to learn, not a performance to prove what all you know, but a time to really learn, and enjoy that time and maximize it as much as you can. Thank you guys so much for listening.
All right. I hope that was helpful today, guys. I hope that gave you some motivation, some inspiration to go out and to be your best self, to go out and to become the nurse that you want to be, to make a difference, and to do the best work that you can. Listen, we're here to help you along your way. At NRSNG.com, our goal is to give you tools and confidence to help you in nursing school, on the NCLEX, and in life. One of those tools we created is our Friday freebies, these weekly PDF cheat sheets that you can refer to on the clinical floor, in the classroom, and just throughout your entire career as a nurse. To get these cheat sheets, head over to nrsng.com/freebies. That's nrsng.com/freebies. You guys, if you need anything, we're here for you. You can reach out to us on social media or via email at contact@nrsng.com. We want you to succeed. We want to help you along the way. We're here to hold your hand. We're here to give you the tools, the confidence that you need to achieve success in this journey to nurse. All right, so you guys know what time it is now. It's time to go out and be your best self today. Happy nursing.